The wind howled across the barren wasteland, carrying with it a chilling echo of forgotten ages. The sun was a distant, fading ember in the sky, its twin siblings casting a muted glow over the alien landscape. Captain Rail surveyed the scene through the flickering readout of his helmet visor, his breath a thin cloud in the icy air. The team had arrived on the edge of the tomb, buried deep in the bowels of this forsaken planet. A relic from a civilization long past, maybe not human, maybe not even of this galaxy. "This is it," Rail said, his voice filtered through the comm system, emotionless as ever. "The tomb's entrance. Prepare yourselves." Behind him, Dr. Lyra Xander adjusted her helmet, her gloved hands trembling ever so slightly, betraying her calm exterior. As a scientist, she was used to uncovering the mysteries of the unknown, but the weight of this discovery was unlike any she had faced before. Her eyes, normally sharp and calculating, softened when she gazed upon the entrance, carved stone surrounded by an intricate, almost hypnotic pattern of alien symbols. Her fingers twitched, itching to decipher the unknown. "I can't believe we're standing here," she murmured to herself, voice barely audible as she crouched next to the structure. "This could change everything." Zorro, the team's ex-soldier turned engineer, kept his distance, scanning the surroundings with a wary eye. His heavily scarred face was unreadable, a lifetime of combat having taught him to trust no one and nothing, especially not ancient alien ruins. His fingers grazed the handle of his plasma pistol as he muttered under his breath, his thick accent cutting through the silence. "I don't like this," Zorro said. "Something feels wrong. You see those marks? No way they were made by the wind." Rail shot him a quick glance, offering a fleeting nod. "I know. Stay alert." Mira, the youngest member of the team, shuffled nervously behind them, her fingers running across the rough texture of her communicator. She had dreamed of being part of this mission, studying ancient languages and uncovering secrets no one had dared to find. But standing at the mouth of this tomb, she wasn't so sure anymore. The air felt thick, oppressive, as though something, or someone, was watching. "Do you really think it's human?" she asked, her voice barely rising above a whisper, uncertain but hopeful. Rail's gaze turned to her, his expression unreadable behind the glass of his helmet. "It's possible, Mira. We don't know yet." Zorro stepped forward, positioning himself at the entrance. With a grunt, he activated the excavation tools, and the heavy stone door groaned and shifted. Slowly, agonizingly, it opened. The air that escaped was stale, thick with the scent of old decay. Rail signaled for the team to move in. The interior was colder than outside, a thick layer of frost clinging to the walls. As the team stepped into the vast, hollow chamber, the silence was overwhelming, broken only by the soft hum of their equipment. There were no signs of life, nothing to indicate anyone had been here in centuries. But then, a sound. A faint, steady rhythm. Mira froze, her heart pounding in her chest. What is that?" Rail held up his hand, signaling for silence. The sound grew clearer, a slow, rhythmic breathing, the unmistakable inhale and exhale of something alive. The team exchanged glances, but no one moved. Every instinct screamed to run, but something else, the scientist and Dr. Lyra, the curiosity in Mira, the duty in Rail, kept them rooted to the spot. "Impossible," Lyra muttered, her voice shaking slightly as she moved toward the center of the chamber. There, lying inside a large, cylindrical sarcophagus, was a human body. Or rather, it had been human once. It was preserved, the skin pale but intact, the features frozen in time. Yet, its chest rose and fell with each breath. "He's alive," Lyra whispered, her voice barely a breath of air. Rail approached the sarcophagus cautiously, his hand hovering over the controls. "We don't know who, or what, this is. Stay back." But as the words left his mouth, the figure stirred. The eyes opened, glowing faintly with an unnatural, eerie light. The survivor, human, or something else, looked directly at them, his lips curling into a slow, unsettling grin. "I thought I was alone." His voice was raspy, hollow, as if he had not spoken in millennia. Rail's mind raced. Every protocol, every warning he'd ever learned screamed at him to retreat, to abandon the mission. But in that moment, standing face to face with a human, alive, on an alien world, something else burned within him. The unknown had become too real. "Who are you?" Rail demanded, his voice a low growl. The survivor's eyes flickered between them, filled with fear, confusion, and something else, something darker. "I was part of a mission, to find the truth," he said, his voice breaking. "And now, they found me." The silence in the chamber was suffocating. The survivor's glowing eyes locked onto Captain Rail, who stood frozen, the weight of the moment settling heavily upon him. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The only sound was the slow, mechanical whir of their equipment and the faint breath of the man who shouldn't have been alive. "Who are you?" Rail repeated, his voice strained, every muscle in his body tense. The man's lips trembled as he struggled to speak, his breath shallow. His fingers twitched at his side, as if he were trying to push against the years of frozen time that had trapped him. "My name," the words came in a rasp, as if they hadn't passed through his throat in centuries. "My name is Elias. I was part of a mission, a long time ago." Dr. Lyra Xander stepped closer, her eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and wonder. "A mission? What kind of mission?" Elias's eyes flickered with something akin to pain. "We came here to explore. But it wasn't what we thought. It wasn't what we were told." Mira, who had been standing at the edge of the room, approached cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean? What happened?" He took a long, shuddering breath, then met her gaze. "We were sent to find a cure, a way to save humanity. But we were wrong, so wrong." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Rail moved to take a step forward, but Zorro raised a hand to stop him. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, looking over the preserved body. "How is this even possible? He's been in there for who knows how long, and now he's breathing. How are we supposed to trust him?" Rail's eyes hardened. "We don't have to trust him. We need answers." The tension in the room was palpable, like the calm before a storm. Elias trembled where he lay, his eyes glancing from one face to another, searching for something. "You need to listen," Elias said, his voice gaining strength. "This place, it's not just a tomb. It's a trap. A prison." Lyra's brow furrowed in confusion. "A prison? For who? For what?" Elias's expression darkened, the faint glow in his eyes flickering. "For all of us. For anyone who tried to help. The aliens, whoever they were, they used us. They used our own people as weapons. They thought we were expendable, a tool for their experiments." Rail's pulse quickened. He took a slow, deliberate breath, trying to steady himself. "You're telling us you were experimented on?" Elias nodded slowly, the grimace on his face deepening. I didn't know at first. But it didn't take long. I saw what they did to the others. They took our memories, our lives, and turned us into something else. Something they could control." The air in the chamber felt colder, and the hum of the equipment seemed to reverberate with a growing intensity. Mira shivered, her eyes wide. You don't look like you're one of them. You're human." "I was," Elias whispered, his voice cracking. "But I've been changed." Rail's jaw tightened, his thoughts swirling with 100 questions, none of which had simple answers. "Changed how?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know how. All I know is that when they left, they thought I was dead. They never thought I would wake up." Lyra's eyes softened, her scientific curiosity now tinged with concern. "How long have you been here? How long have you been alone?" Elias closed his eyes, a pained expression crossing his face. "I don't know. Time, it's not the same here. I can't explain it. But I was supposed to wake up. I thought I was forgotten. But I wasn't. I'm still here, and they're still watching." A deep, unsettling silence followed his words. The wind outside howled louder now, rattling the walls of the tomb. Zorro's hand moved to his weapon, but Rael held up a hand, signaling him to stay calm. "We need to get out of here," Zorro said, his voice sharp with urgency. "This whole place reeks of danger. He doesn't even know how he survived. What if it's a trap?" Rael turned to Zorro, his eyes narrowing. "And if it's not? If there's something here we don't understand? We need to know what happened, and we need to know now." Elias's voice quivered. "They'll come for you. They'll come for all of you." Lyra, now visibly shaken, looked to Rael. "Captain, we can't just leave him here. He's human. He deserves answers." Rael didn't reply immediately. His gaze fixed on Elias, the weight of his decision bearing down on him. There was too much unknown. Too much risk. But the pull of the mystery, of what lay beneath the surface of this dead world, was too great. "We'll stay for now," Rael said, his voice hardening with resolve. "But we're not leaving without answers." The chamber had become a pressure cooker of tension, the silence between them almost unbearable. Elias lay back against the cold stone, his breathing shallow, but steady. His eyes darted from one person to the next, a flicker of something darker clouding his expression as he spoke. "They're coming for us. You don't understand, they never left." Rael could feel the weight of the words settle on him like a heavy blanket. Every part of him screamed to pull the team out of the tomb and abandon this cursed place. Yet, something in Elias's gaze, a fear laced with knowledge, held him in place. The survivor knew something the others didn't. "Who?" Rael asked, his voice calm, but a hard edge creeping in. "Who's coming?" Elias's eyes flickered with something, guilt? Regret? It was hard to tell. He shook his head slowly, as if the effort caused him pain. They weren't just scientists. They were soldiers. Their mission wasn't to explore. It was to invade. And they used us, my team, as pawns in their game. Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling with a mix of scientific curiosity and genuine concern. "But your mission, Elias. You said you were sent to save humanity. How did it go wrong?" Elias closed his eyes, the muscles in his face tensing. "We were promised salvation. The cure for every disease, every affliction. But it was a lie. A trap. The aliens who took us, they had no interest in curing humanity. They were preparing to wipe us out and use us as vessels to spread their influence. The cure wasn't for us. It was for them." Zorro's eyes narrowed. "Vessels?" His tone was harsh, skeptical. "Are you telling us you were turned into weapons? Like some kind of biological bomb?" Elias grimaced. "Worse. They altered our DNA. We were reshaped. Some of us fought back, tried to escape. But they always found us. Always." The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Myra's voice, barely a whisper, cut through the tension. "What happened to the others? The rest of your crew?" Elias's face softened with pain, the edges of his expression worn from the years, or centuries, spent in isolation. "They're dead. All of them. But not in the way you think. They were taken. Their bodies used, their minds erased. There's nothing left of them, just the husks they left behind." Rael's mind raced. He knew they couldn't stay here much longer, but every instinct told him that Elias was right. Whatever was going on here was far more dangerous than they'd anticipated. The mission had gone from a simple exploration to something much darker, more complicated. "We need to get out of here," Zorro muttered, the urgency in his voice now impossible to ignore. "This place is a trap. We've got no idea what's really down here, but whatever it is, it's not good." Rael stood still, his eyes scanning the room, his mind calculating. There were too many unknowns. Too many questions that hadn't been answered. But what really struck him was the certainty in Elias's words. The man wasn't just a survivor, he was a living warning. "We're not leaving yet," Rael said firmly, the resolve in his voice cutting through the tension. "We need to learn everything we can. If there's a threat out there, we need to understand it. Elias lifted his head, the faintest glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. You don't know what you're dealing with. They're not just aliens. They've been planning for centuries. You won't stop them with guns and technology. You need to understand their history. Their motives. Lyra's voice softened. We have to try. We're the only ones who can stop them, Elias. He hesitated, then nodded, his expression heavy with something unreadable. All right. I'll help you. But you have to trust me. There's no going back once you open the door. Zorro scowled. What door? Elias's gaze darkened. The tomb. It's not just a crypt. It's a vault. The knowledge you need is hidden inside. But unlocking it will put you on their radar. You'll have to face them sooner or later. Rael's stomach churned. The implications of Elias's words were like an echo in his head. They had come to this planet searching for answers, but now they were being led deeper into a web of deceit that they weren't prepared to face. Let's move, Rael ordered, his voice a harsh command. We've come this far. There's no turning back now. Mira stepped forward, her eyes still filled with doubt, but determination creeping in. How do we unlock it? Elias hesitated for a moment before answering. It's not a simple mechanism. You'll need to use my blood. It's the key. Zorro's eyes widened. Your blood? You've got to be kidding me. But before anyone could react, the ground beneath their feet trembled, sending vibrations through the walls. The rumble grew louder, faster, until the entire chamber began to shake. A deep, guttural sound echoed from somewhere far below. Elias's face drained of color. They found us. The walls began to shift as if alive, and Rael realized that the tomb itself was changing, shifting to reveal something darker and far more deadly. We're out of time, Rael shouted. Now! The tomb rumbled again, more violently this time, shaking the very walls that had kept Elias hidden for so long. Rael's breath quickened, the air growing heavy with the tension of the unknown. Something was coming, something far beyond their control. The ground cracked beneath their feet, a deep, guttural sound reverberating through the ancient stone. Whatever had been lying dormant was now awakening. Move! Rael shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm and yanking her forward. We need to unlock that vault now. Zorro was already at the far side of the room, scanning the shifting walls with a mix of confusion and disbelief. This place, he broke off, eyes wide with realization. It's alive. The tomb itself is reacting to us. Mira, her face pale with fear, backed away from the opening stone panels that were beginning to close in, like a giant's jaws snapping shut. Elias. You said the blood would open it. What now? Elias, still reeling from the shock of his memories flooding back, staggered forward. His voice was shaky, but there was a newfound urgency in it. The blood, it's the key. But, they're coming. They won't let you get to it. Not without a fight. Rael felt the weight of Elias's words settle into his chest. They had come here for answers, but what they had uncovered had unleashed something far worse. The alien soldiers were on their way, and this tomb, this ancient prison, was not just a resting place, it was a warning. Zorro's eyes locked onto the strange patterns on the walls. The symbols were shifting, twisting, like they were alive. We don't have time to figure out what it all means. We need to force this open. Rael turned to Elias. You've been here for centuries, what's the fastest way to get to the vault? Elias's face contorted with guilt. It's not just a door. It's a complex, a network. There are guards, creatures, designed to protect it. I don't know if you'll make it. Tell me where to go, Rael demanded, his voice cutting through the tension. The walls shuddered again, a low rumble echoing from deep within the tomb. He could feel the pressure building, the weight of the situation bearing down on them like 1,000 tons. Elias nodded, pulling himself to his feet despite the weakness in his limbs. His gaze flickered to Mira and then to Rael. Follow me. There's a chamber, inside. That's where you'll find the final mechanism. Rael's eyes met Zorro's. The former soldier was already setting up the demolition gear, his jaw clenched in grim determination. We're going in. No turning back. The team moved in unison, with Elias leading the way through the dark corridors of the tomb. The air grew colder, the oppressive weight of the place pressing down on them. Every step was filled with the promise of danger, but also of answers. As they advanced, the walls seemed to pulse with a strange, low hum, like the heartbeat of something ancient and powerful. Mira stumbled behind them, her mind racing. What do you mean they've been planning for centuries? These aliens, how could they have known? Elias glanced over his shoulder, his eyes filled with the sadness of one who had seen too much. They didn't just come here by accident. They knew humanity would follow. They knew you would come looking for the truth. You were always meant to find this. Rael frowned. What does that mean? We were part of their plan? Yes, Elias said simply. You're the final piece. The last step in their conquest. The words hit Rael like a punch to the gut. He had always thought of the mission as a simple search for answers, but now it was clear. They were pawns in a much larger game. And they were running out of time. Ahead, the path opened into a vast chamber, its walls lined with intricate alien technology, pulsating with energy. At the center of the room stood a massive structure, a crystalline vault, its surface shimmering with a strange, otherworldly light. Elias moved toward it, but Rael stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. No, you stay back, Rael said, his tone hard. We'll handle this. Zorro set the charges with a practiced hand, his movements swift and precise. But before he could finish, a sharp, metallic screech echoed from the distance. The air vibrated, and the sound of approaching footsteps, heavy, rhythmic, and purposeful, cut through the tension like a blade. They're here, Elias whispered, his voice filled with dread. Rael's heart skipped a beat. The aliens were close, and they weren't about to let them take what was hidden in this vault. The countdown to disaster had begun. We're not going to make it out of here without a fight, Rael muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. Get ready. This is it. The first wave of the alien soldiers emerged from the shadows, their forms towering and grotesque, their eyes burning with an unnatural light. They moved with a fluidity that was terrifying, as if they were not bound by the same laws of nature as humans. Rael's pulse quickened, but his resolve remained unshaken. This was humanity's moment. This was their fight. And they would not lose. Not this time. With a roar, the battle began. The true war for survival was only just beginning.